Okay, so I did a video a couple weeks ago about Tank Dyna. Honestly, I should have put more thought into the video. It wasn't what I really wanted it to be. I'm kind of going this one off script too, but a lot of people have been talking about Dyna's build specifically since the nerfs, talking about whether like the tank build is still better, and whether you should still be going Liandry's or go Nashors. So I'm just here to talk about specifically Nashors versus Liandry's. I'll probably talk a little bit about why Tank Dyna is just better anyways than AP, but this is mainly for like just Tank Dyna Nashors versus Liandry's. I just want to start off by saying Tank Dyna is still better than AP, even after the nerfs. I mean, the nerfs they didn't even target Tank Dyna, which is what they should have nerfed, because that's what everyone's, stressed with. They just basically nerfed her clear speed, which hurts both AP and tank. So really, Tank Dyna was already better before, and now it's going to be better still. So Tank Dyna is still good. It's not as broken because obviously Dyna's clear speed's worse, but she's still really good. Okay, so let me just start to compare the builds. So I'm just going to start with just full build, comparing. So this is the build I go. These two tank items will change depending on the game, like if there's better tank items, Thornmail, Spirit Visage, stuff like that. But this is like, if you didn't know what to build, this is probably like, these two tank items are probably just default. And then Rabadons, I have this here because this would be a Dark Seal, but like there's no way to stack Dark Seal without like me spawning in an enemy, so I didn't want to do that, so I just bought a Rabadon, or a Rabadons. I will compare this with the other build too. I mean, with this build anyways, if you lose your Dark Seal stacks, you sell it for Rabadons, so either way this will be a part of the build if you somehow get into like a 35-minute game where you can, sell your Dark Seal for Rabadons, but it's just there to basically be a placeholder for Medjais. It is more AP, but it's relatively close. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Okay, that was awkward. So let me just talk about the build as a full. So if you compare the stats, so health, almost 3,800, almost 3,800 health. You get 474 AP. I'll ping these just so we can go back and look. You have 147 MR. Sometimes you can switch this for Merc Treads, but generally it's better to go plated Steel Caps. And then you have 248 armor, which is a ton. So stats are just already really good. Also, actually, I should mention the haste too. I don't know where my the tenacity haste rune is or runes are just bugged in practice tool when you try to stack them. So I should have 45. So it should be 45 instead of 30. Haste is very important for this build, so that's also, I'll talk about this later, but that's a benefit why you go Nashors, because you can build this haste rune. Anyway, so a full build, these are the stats. And then if I switch this for the other build, so you go Liandry's, I think they go Unending Despair. This might be different now because Unending's nerfed, but I'm just gonna go the build that was last patch just so I can compare it at a base. And I think they went Abyssal, which honestly it might just be not even the Liandry's fault. It might just be the build creator. Like Abyssal kind of just sucks as an item, but I'll put it on here because it's just the default. So we still have about the same AP. It's 5 less. I mean, that's just because Nashors gives more AP, right? So people will try to say, oh, Liandry's gives HP, which benefits with the Rift Maker, but when you really compare, Nashors still gives more AP, right? Because you're just getting straight up 10 AP rather than the HP. So you're more AP on the Nashors build. HP is up by 300, of course, right? Because you're you're buying an item with 300 HP, so you're getting 300 more HP. MR is down by 10 and your armor is down by 50, which is a lot. 80 damage does so much, but it's not even really the stats, it's more so the items themselves. So when you compare the builds in full, Nashors is still just a better build, but that doesn't really compare the items. This is just the two builds. Obviously you can still go my Randuin's and Kanik with this build, which I still think is just better. If you do want to for some reason go Liandry's, I recommend just Randuin's Kanik. I also have a guide on Mobifier that explains all the tank items and when you would want to go each tank item, because my build in general is just Nashors Rift, 2 tank items, defensive boots, and Medjais, right? So those two tank items will depend on the game, and if you're curious as to what tank items you should be going, I have a guide in the description that explains when you should go each item. You'll have to scroll a little bit on the guide to find it, but it's pretty easy to read once you see it. So okay, so that's enough about the builds. As you can see from the stats, the only benefit you get from Liandry's is 300 more HP. Everything else is just leaning towards Nashors. And it's actually, Nashors is just even better when you have less items. So at full build, Liandry scales closer to Nashors, but it's never going to pass it. Nashors is just always going to be better. But at full build, Liandry's is closer to the Nashors build than it is when you first get Nashors. So I will say, as you have less items, it's even better than this. But even with the full build alone, Nashors just clears it in everything except for HP. Also, I should mention... actually, you do get haste from these items, so that's actually a benefit for these two items. You do get haste, but you would be still down 5 haste, because with the haste rune that you're allowed to go with Nashors, you would have 45 haste instead of 40, plus the additional other stats. So because with Liandry's, you're forced to go alacrity, or else you just don't have attack speed. With Nashors, you want to go haste because you don't need the attack speed. Anyways, so that's enough about the full build. Let's talk about the items in themselves. So if you just compare the item, or actually before we talk about items, let's talk about the build path. So Nashors has a way better build path. All these Haunting Guys is very good. Problem is, it's really expensive. You're never going to get a 1300 back ever on your first clear. The only reason you ever get a 1300 back is if you full clear and get a kill and an assist, or you take like an extra camp after getting a kill. Because if you just full clear and get a kill, that's still not enough for 1300, right? So the build path is bad because it's hard to get this item, and then also this Faded Ash item is kind of underwhelming on Diana. At least it might be better on champions like, you know, Brand or Lilia that can proc it better, but so like Haunted Guys is good, but it's too expensive. And even though this item's good, it's just better with Nashors, because the raw EP you get from Blasting Wand, the 45, which is a ton by the way, the raw EP you get from Blasting Wand is so strong early game. Diana has pretty like strong dueling, and with this, you actually beat like a lot of champions. And then Recurve Bow might seem underwhelming, but the additional attack speed you get lets you proc your passive so much more with clearing and with duels. So it's actually really good, and also everything is super cheap here, so you're almost always going to be able to buy something on your backs. Even if you don't have like 850, you can still buy at least like a amp tome in this. Of course you can still do it on here, but just in general, the build path here is way better. And then not only that, but when you complete the item itself is just way better. So you get 10 more AP. The attack speed is really nice for clear speed, and then the haste as well. Like I said before, haste is really important for this build. You're getting let's see, just with the one item alone, how much you're cutting off. So on your Q, of course, this is like a level 5 Q. It is even better for when you're E and W, or level 1, you get more cooldown off. But a level 5 Q, you're taking 5.2. You're taking like 0.6 seconds off, which is pretty important, because 0.6 seconds means your E is up 0.6 seconds faster, right? Because your E cooldown is basically your Q cooldown. But it's even better with your W, because at level 1, this is what 11 seconds. You're probably getting a full second off your W, which is pretty important. And then your ult too, it's 86. You're probably gonna get like, actually I guess I could just look here. You take 13%, so off your ult you're getting about 11 seconds off, something like that. 11 or maybe 10 point something, 11. You're getting 11 seconds off your ult, which is pretty nice too. So the haste is nice too. Just as a standalone item, Nashors is just always better. Because any case you would want the HP from Liandry's, you could just argue you would have just killed him if you had Nashors anyways. Nashors is always going to do more damage. Your clear speed's better, your objective taking is better. If you for some reason can get plating, which happens pretty often actually, like let's say you kill a top laner and you have free chance to get plates, you can grab plates easily with Nashors. There's just so many reasons why Nashors is better than Liandry's on a 1-to-1. Obviously, since you're missing that HP, I would say it's harder for someone that doesn't know the limits. So maybe Liandry's is better for like a first timer, because you're not really going to understand your limits with the less HP. But the damage is always going to make up for that, as long as you're somewhat comfortable in the champion. So, oh, there was something else I was going to say. Actually, I don't remember what I was gonna say right then. Anyways, so so I was talking about clear speed, objective taking. I'm sorry, I'm completely blanking now. Okay, so okay, I'll just talk about the items again more. So when you're in a fight, you would think let me turn off turrets. So when you're in a fight, you would think, hey, if I'm versus a tank, Liandry's is gonna do you know, burn, and the bonus damage is gonna do burn. I've tested it in like multiple situations where you do like short fights, extended fights, versus a tank versus a squishy. Even if you're versus like a 10,000 okay, maybe not 10,000, even if you're versus like a 10,000, you probably still do more with Nashors, but I didn't really test that. I tested with like a normal tank HP worth, and even versus a tank and even in extended fights, which is perfect scenario for Liandry's, Nashors always does more damage. And I even did the math. When you add in the 300 extra HP from Liandry's for how long you would survive, Nashors is still doing more damage. So that's the only thing you're comparing, right? When you're comparing two damage items, it's the damage, right? You can't really compare anything else. You could say, oh, well, what about in certain fights where you're just only throwing Q? When is that ever happening in a real game as Diana? That's never happening. Even if that does happen, the damage that Liandry's does can be made up in like literally 1 second of fighting with Nashors. It's so negligible. Like, it's not even worth arguing. Like, the only thing you could ever compare, you're comparing two damage items, because they are damage items. Yes, Liandry's gives HP, but you factor in the HP for how much damage you're going to do, right? Because you add in the duration you're going to live longer. The only thing that matters when you compare two damage items is which does more damage, and it's Nashors. So, like, that's just why you should just always go Nashors. And that's just talking about damage. When you talk about clear speed, objective taking, turrets, everything else, Nashors is better for that too. So I can't even think of a single reason you'd want to go Liandry's, really. But I will say, like I said before, obviously you got to know your limits more because you are missing 300 HP, but you do way more damage. And since you do clear faster, you scale in your other items way better. You're gonna be hitting 2-3 items very, very fast. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but if you watch anyone play this build, if they go to the Liandry's build, you're kind of stuck like 1 item, 2 items for forever, because 1, you clear slower, and 2, like you're not really strong. Like, you're only strong with the Liandry's Riftmaker build when you get like 3-4 items, then you become strong. So the Nashors just really, you know, buffs that and makes you get your items even faster. So you're going to be stronger at 1 item, you're going to get your 2 items faster, you're going to get your 3 items faster. You just get everything faster, and you can actually take fights early. If you're Liandry's Riftmaker, you're not really winning many fights early. If you go watch any high elo player, I mean, you might even notice this in any game really, but if you watch any high elo player go to build, like, they're not getting any kills early. It's usually like once they get 3-4 items. But if you go Nashors, you're actually able to take way more fights. You're able to do way more with this. Do I have anything else I wanted to compare about these items? I compared the haste, attack speed, stats. I think that's about everything. I think I've compared everything with the Liandry's and Nashors. I guess that's everything. I mean, since I've talked about the build, I guess I could just talk about how you want to play tank Diana. So early game, you're basically, I mean, the most important thing is your Dark Seal. So as you're still like a damage dealer and farming jungler. You're not like a Sejuani. So you don't want to think about you playing like a Sejuani and just spam ganking. You're still a farming jungler. You want to just basically full clear. And it's most important to protect your Dark Seal stacks. You really need to stack these Dark Seal stacks up and try not to lose them. And the benefit of going this build is, and why I think this build is so strong, since you are unkillable, you basically get to stack your Dark Seal for free because you're really hard to kill and you can like get pretty easy stacks the way your champion plays. So stacking your Dark Seal is super important and try not to lose it. Like, you obviously, if the fight's super important and you don't want to lose the game over not going for a fight because your Dark Seal, then sure, go for it. But for the most part, you just want to protect your Dark Seal no matter what. Like, I normally won't go for a play if I know I'm gonna die from it, because it's just not worth it. If I keep my Dark Seal stacks and just farm, it's usually just better. So that's like the number one thing. Second is, I guess I could just talk about the build path. So I talked about this in my other video, but I just want to briefly go over it. So first you're going to go Nashors, then you're going to go Riftmaker normally in most games, right? But let's say you're against like 4 AP or 4 AD and you think you need to get a tank item or else you're just going to die. Then you can go like hit a tank item next. So like if they're 4 AD and you really need the resistances, then you can just go Randuin's next after Nashors. Or if they're 4 AP, which is very rare, but if for some reason they're 4 AP, you can go like Kanik second, right? And then go Riftmaker. Because again, you need to keep your Dark Seal stack, and you're going to get way more value out of this item if they have, you know, 4 AP, 4 AD than Riftmaker would give you. When you do this, though, you kind of want to make sure you do actually have Dark Seal stacks to play off of, because if you go this, yes, you'll get a ton of value out of this, but if you go this and you don't have Dark Seal stacks, you're lacking, I mean, Nashors is still good damage, but you're lacking a ton of damage until you get that Riftmaker. So when you do this, you gotta like really emphasize protecting your Dark Seal stacks. If you go Riftmaker second, you can, like, obviously the Dark Seal is important, but it's not as important as if you went, you know, a tank item second. So normally you go, you know, Riftmaker second, then you go tank item. This will, well, you have boots after Nashors usually. You can sit on tier 1 boots sometimes. If either you don't get good value out of them, actually that's usually when, if you don't get good value out of your boots, just sit tier 1 boots and finish them later, because if the boots don't give you good value, it's not really worth it, because you take magical footwear, so you can literally just sit on your tier 1 boots, which give you pretty much enough move speed along with blue smite to just not even need tier 2. So you only want to upgrade to tier 2 if it's worth it, or if you're already like 2-3 items, you know, staying tier 1 boots is perfectly fine. But obviously if the boots are valuable, just upgrade them after Nashors. So tank items will depend on the game. You go, you know, Randuin's or Kanik or whatever other tank items are described in my guide. So you get 2 tank items, and then your last item is yeah, the Dark Seal that you bought earlier. So this, you can upgrade to Medjai's whenever you feel like you're not gonna die, because again, it's very important to keep your stacks, or if the game is completely doomed and the only way back in the game is to buy Medjai's. Because if the game's completely doomed and you buy Medjai's, you can slowly stack it up, maybe you could turn it winnable. So that's the only other reason you would buy Medjai's early, or upgrade to Medjai's. If you do lose your stacks, again, you could just sell it for a you usually only want to do this once you already have other items, or once it's too late to like stack your Dark Seal. You can sell it for a large rod. You don't want to do this too early, because obviously you can still stack your Dark Seal even if you lose them if it's early in the game. But late in the game, you can sell it for a large rod, and then once you have every other item completed, you can turn this into a Rabadon's. So that's the build. I can talk about how you want to play fights. So you can still look for those, like, you know, massive 4-man Rs, because you do a lot of damage still, right? Your ult does do a lot of damage still. But the most important thing is to play slow. You don't want to use your ult unless if you really think it's a good time to use your ult, and you want to think of your Q cooldown or your E cooldown as your Q cooldown. So let's say I'm chasing someone, QE, right? I shouldn't just E again, right, if they flash, unless if you can just insta pop them, right? Insta pop them, or you really need to kill them because they're gonna kill you, right? Then sure. But most of the time, let me get some mana real quick. Most of the time, you're gonna want to QE, walk with them, right? Keep hitting them, and then Q, keep hitting them. Let your like mark sit, and then maybe they flash, right, when you have your mark on them still, and then you follow with E again, and you still have your E reset because you didn't waste it, right? Your Q cooldown is 4 seconds late game. You do not, actually it's even shorter because I don't have the haste from my haste rune, right? So it should be like 3.7 ish. So you don't need to use your second E. You can wait 3.7 seconds, right? Most of the time. So you want to think of your E cooldown as your Q cooldown. Your W is very important. This is a ton of your damage, and you get like a massive shield from this. It's like 700-ish HP. Your W is very important. That's also why the haste is just better. You get your W up way faster. So just spam that on cooldown. Let's say you're in a minion wave. Right? You're getting Caitlyn ulted and you're like lethal, but you want to survive, but your W won't give you, you know, enough HP. If you break these orbs, you will get like the second part of the shield, right? So you want to walk into the wave and proc the second part. A lot of people don't actually utilize that, and it's very important because it also gets your W on cooldown faster. But so it's really important to like actually proc your W. So the way you want to play fights is just like basically hit people when they're free, because you'll always basically just stat check blue with this build, right? Unless if they play like true damage or tank shredders. And then let's say the ADC walks up, one, you have Conqueror stacked, you have your Riftmaker stacked, right? And then you can just completely just actually one-shot him. You literally will just straight up one-shot him, even going this tank build. You also don't even have to like ult them. You can literally just be patient. Okay, where did the dummy go? Okay, so you can just keep hitting this guy, right? Let's say their ADC gets in range, like E, and just auto them to death, right? You don't even need to ult probably, but obviously if it's a very important kill, you probably just want to ult, and you'll just straight up kill them. You need to be very patient. Try to look for better windows with this, because the benefit of going this build is, since you are tanking, you have these tanky stats, you can actually look for way better windows, and you can take these fights way slower. If you go AP Diana, you're so squishy, you kind of have to just like, oh, I see, oh, ADC ult, right? That's how you play AP Diana. Tank Diana, you got to play way more slow, and just like take the free damage on people when you can, and then dive their backline. That's usually how you want to play the game. If anyone's ever played like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals, it's kind of like playing a tank in that game, in a sense, where you just hit the front line, right? And then when you see a window to go for the back line, you go for the back line. So it's kind of like that. I do have tips and tricks on Diana abilities in my guide, so I guess I could go over them, but I don't really think I need to, because that's not really what this video is about. If anyone has any questions, maybe some of it would be answered by my guide. If there's any other questions, you know, comment down below or comment on my guide. That should be everything. I'm just going to think real quick if there's anything I'm missing about this build, why you should go this over Liandry's. Oh, okay, actually, I just want to say this. Some people are going to miss this probably because this is so late in the video and I've been just like stammering. But so a lot of people say, oh, Liandry's is better because, you know, with Nashors, you need to auto, right? That is Diana's entire damage. Is okay, not your entire damage. Your ult does a lot, so your abilities. But half your damage comes from your passive. If you're not able to auto anyways, you're not doing damage on either Liandry's or Nashors, right? And if you're not able to auto, you're probably just taking bad fights. So you still got, like, even though you're tanky, you still got to choose good fights and be able to, like, look for windows where you can actually make an impact. You don't want to just ooga booga jump in, right? You still want to look for those good windows. So that's why I don't understand when people make that argument, because it's like, even if you go Liandry's, you're still going to need to auto, right? And it's even harder with the Liandry's build if you can't auto because your attack speed is so low. So at least with Nashors, you have a ton of attack speed. You can like weave in way more autos. Plus you have so many dashes. Like if you're not able to auto, I don't know what you're doing wrong, right? You have an ult to pull them back in. You have a dash. So like you should just be able to auto. And if they have CC to CC you, like the Liandry's isn't changing anything because you're not autoing. You're not using spells anyways. Like you get 300 extra HP, but like sure you get 300 extra HP on the off chance that you're just like getting chain CC'd and somehow that 300 HP saves you, but you just do less damage, you know? Instead of just relying on that, that's like a very rare occurrence. Just take the item that's just better in 99% of situations and just take better fights, you know? Just take better fights. Because even if you just get a couple autos off, right? That Nashor's damage is always going to do more, along with the attack speed and the more passive procs, is just always going to do more than any kind of damage Liandry's can ever do. So yeah, just every single way that you could, you know, talk about the comparison, like Nashors just beats it. So this is the build. I just want to say, even though probably no one's gonna see this because it's at the end, but again, like people think you have to go Liandry's, right? Because it gives HP. You're like, oh, you're tank, right? And these things stack off HP, especially Unending Despair, right? You don't need every single item to synergize for it to be better, if that makes sense. Because in that case, like you could argue for so many other champions to go certain items because they technically synergize, but it doesn't mean it's always the best item or the best, you know, build. The same thing with Nashors, right? If you're tankier, I can proc my passive way more, right? Which is going to do way more damage than Liandry's ever will. Procking my passive more autos, it's just going to do way more damage. And the haste too is the biggest thing. The haste is like the biggest thing too. Clear speed, objective, everything. So that should be everything. That should probably a long video. I have no idea how long this is. I'm sorry, I was kind of stammering. Probably missed some things. Again, if you have any questions about certain things about it, just comment. But I hope that clears up any kind of question about whether you should go Nashors or Liandry's.